Today, I wanted to cover what I believe to be one of the craziest Warlock builds available this season. I've been using this build for the last few days and I haven't been able to put it down because of how much fun and amazing the build is. With today's build, you'll be able to have high uptime on your abilities, have a weapon that is overcharged all the time, and you'll be able to generate your super back in seconds. As always, the dim link for this build is in the description below, so without wasting any more time, I'm SniperKH and let's hop into it. Let's open with the subclass layout. For this build, you will want to be on the Arc subclass for the Warlock. In terms of what you'll want to use, I'd recommend using Chaos Reach for your super, as it's simply the best Arc Warlock super in the game. Additionally, the exotic we'll be using will also buff the super, but more on that later. For your Rift and Melee, you can use whichever ones you'd like to use, but I found Healing Rift and Ball Lightning to be the best choices for each ability respectively. For the grenade, I chose Pulse Grenade as it's my personal favorite grenade for this build. That being said, you could also get away with using Lightning Grenades if you prefer to use those instead. For your aspects, I'd recommend using Arc Soul and Electrostatic Mind. I'd recommend Arc Soul as it's an ability, so that can help with Ionic Trace generation, and for Electrostatic Mind, this will allow your abilities to generate Ionic Traces, which is important as this aspect will be how we generate all of our Ionic Traces. With this build, we have access to 4 fragment slots. For the first fragment slot we'll be using, I'd recommend Spark of Amplitude, as it will give you another source for Orb of Powers through being amplified. For the second slot, I'd recommend Spark of Ions. The reason behind this pick is because we'll have Bull Charge up a large portion of the time, meaning we'll constantly have another way of getting Ionic Traces. For the third fragment, I'd recommend Spark of Discharge. Spark of Discharge will be helpful with this build as it'll allow us to have yet another way to generate Ionic Traces, this time through Arc Weapon Final Blows, in which we'll be getting a large amount of them thanks to the main weapon we'll be using with this build. For the fourth and final fragment, I'd recommend Spark of Beacons. The reason behind this pick is that it'll allow us to blind enemies with Arc Special and Heavy Weapon Final Blows, which will add on to the crowd control aspect of this build. For the exotics you want to pair with this build, I'd recommend Geomag Stabilizers and Delicate Tomb. The reason behind both of these picks is because both exotics receive pretty sizable buffs going into Heresy, which increase their effectiveness a noticeable amount. Delicate Tomb's perk, Tempest Cascade, now has a higher chance of generating Ionic Traces from minor combatant kills, does 100% more damage rather than 30% more damage, and the timer from the buff was removed, with the Tempest Cascade buff only going away when you fire the shot. For Geomag Stabilizers, Bungie added a new functionality to the exotic perk, making it so that sprinting while you are near max stack to Bull Charge will top off the stat count. Additionally, they buffed the super energy you gain from Ionic Traces from 2% to 7%. This buff is what allows us to generate our super back so quickly and will create a great combination, as we'll be generating Ionic Traces from Delicate Tomb kills, which will buff Delicate Tomb, letting it do more damage for one shot, while giving us bonus ability energy and bonus super energy thanks to Geomag Stabilizers, creating a satisfying loop between the two. For weapons and mods, there's no other weapon that I'd say really enhances this build much. That being said, I found myself getting high uptime on Legend Incarnate, which is the seasonal mod that buffs Vault of Glass weapons, so you can definitely use some of those weapons and take advantage of that buff. For mods, I found myself running 1 copy of Ashes to Assets and 1 copy of Special Ammo Finder. I found the Special Ammo Finder to be important as with this build, we'll be using our Delicate Tomb as our primary weapon for the most part. For gauntlets, I found myself running 1 copy of Bolstering Detonation, 1 copy of Firepower, and 1 copy of Harmonic Loader. Bolstering Detonation will grant us our class ability back through our grenade, which is nice to keep us up in case we get close to death. Additionally, Firepower is a great way to grant us Orb of Power through grenade kills. For our boots, I'd recommend 2 copies of Innervation and 1 copy of Arc Weapon Surge. Innervation will let us get our grenade back even faster, and Arc Weapon Surge will let us boost our Delicate Tomb's damage even further. Finally, for the class item, I ran 1 copy of Bomber to get the grenade back even faster, 1 copy of Powerful Attraction to suck orbs in when using the class ability, and Reaper to generate an orb from a weapon kill after using our Rift. Additionally, this build benefits from this episode's artifact, so use Dielectric and Flash over to enhance this build further. Next up, I wanted to cover what stats you'll want to focus on with this build, since armor stats are important for this build. I found that Resilience and Discipline were the 2 most essential armor stats to focus on, as having tier 10 Resilience will make it harder for us to die thanks to the permanent 30% damage resistance. and tier 10 discipline will make getting our grenade back much easier. From there, I'd recommend focusing on recovery, as that'll allow us to regenerate our health back faster and will speed up the cooldown for our rift. From there, the last 3 stats won't pose too much importance to this build, though I'd recommend focusing strength, intellect, and mobility in that order, as strength and intellect will help us get our melee and super back faster respectively. Now that we've covered armor stats, let's delve into the combat flow. For combat flow, I like to start by throwing a grenade and then using my rift in melee. I do this to get rid of my abilities right away to start charging them faster, but also as all 3 of those abilities will be generating ionic traces. From there, collect any ionic traces you get and begin firing your delicate tomb on the adds. The ionic traces you will be getting will allow you to have near constant uptime on Tempest Cascade, while also generating even more ionic traces through delicate tomb. Additionally, you'll be getting large chunks of your super back with ionic traces. As you get your abilities back, use them again to generate ionic traces, and once you build your super, pop it to start the regeneration process again. Once you pop your super, rinse and repeat for an easy combat loop for a strong build. Overall, this build turned out to be a super fun build, allowing you to have high uptime on all of your abilities, and in turn becomes a strong build. I've been using this build in the Nether and other mid-ranged activities, and I've found that this build exceeds in that content, and I'd recommend you give this build a try if you haven't yet. Well, that'll wrap up today's video. If you found this video helpful, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more Destiny 2 content dropping soon. If you'd like to come catch me live, then you can do so over at twitch.tv/SniperKH_, where I'll be live streaming buildcrafting and other shenanigans that I promise you won't want to miss. Otherwise, check the description below for my other social media platforms where I post when I upload and go live. With that being said, I'm SniperKH, and I'm out. Good luck with gaming.